Alright, UFC 301 just happened, and it went about as I expected. It was a pretty good card, some very good fights on here, great finishes. And we're going to start with the main event where Alexandre Pantoja won a controversial decision over Steve Erceg. One of the judges gave it 49-46 to Pantoja, which makes absolutely no sense at all. I mean, at best, it's 3-2 Pantoja. I know Chael Sonnen, the great Chael Sonnen, did have it 50-45 for Pantoja. I know a lot of people thought Steve Erceg won at least 3 of the rounds. Some people even thought he won 4 of the 5 rounds. I mean, rounds 1 and 4 were easy. Round 1 easily went to Pantoja. He had the effective striking, landed the better shots, landed the more damaging shots, and he had the effective grappling as well, getting him down, getting good positions, got his back. So round 1 easily went to Pantoja. Round 4 easily went to Steve Erceg. That second round was very close. I leaned with Steve Erceg. I think he landed the slightly more damaging shots. Pantoja was doing very well on the feet, but I think Erceg definitely outlanded him, did more damage. Pantoja did get the 2 takedowns, but didn't really do much with them. The first one, Erceg got up pretty much immediately, and then the second one, he held him for like 10 seconds, and then the round ended. So I think round 2, you got to give to Steve Erceg. Round 3 was also very close. This was probably the closest round of the fight. Pantoja was doing very good, landing good on the feet, landing good shots to the body, good knees to the body, and Pantoja was doing very good in this round up until he walked straight into that elbow of Steve Erceg that cut him open badly. It was a bad cut. Erceg also landed a really nice left hook behind it, but that elbow was by far the most damaging shot of the round. So I think you got to give that third round to Erceg, and then the 5th round was also very close. I would say Erceg slightly outlanded Pantoja on the feet, although it was pretty even. And then Pantoja obviously had all of that control time, which doesn't really matter, but he did get side control for a bit and did get mount, so that is scored in effective grappling. Overall, I'd probably lean Pantoja in that 5th round, but again, it was a very close round. So I had it 3-2 Erceg, where I gave him the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I could also potentially see 4-1 Erceg, because that 5th round was very close. I don't know if I'd call it a robbery, because I could also potentially see 3-2 Pantoja. 4-1 Pantoja is crazy. But let's talk about the actual fight itself. Steve Erceg is the best boxer in this division, and it is not close. No one can strike with this guy. He is so smooth, so accurate with what he lands too. His jab is very good. He has the best jab in the entire division, and that jab was landing all day on Pantoja. Just those straight shots down the center line were so effective for Steve Erceg. As I said leading up to this, Pantoja's striking defense is not very good. Just those straight shots down the center line were landing all day for Steve Erceg. As I said, Pantoja doesn't have great striking defense, doesn't move his head, and Erceg was so accurate, picking out his openings. As I said, at distance, no one can strike with this guy. Now, in the pocket, Pantoja was having some success, was landing good right hands, good shots to the body. He landed that one knee in the first round that split Erceg open, but overall, Erceg was having so much success on the feet, and that should have been his game plan, try and defend the takedowns, get up from the bottom, and outland Pantoja on the feet. But he was initiating a lot of the grappling exchanges. I think he went for 4 takedowns in total throughout the entire fight, and in that 5th round, it probably cost him because Pantoja was reversing them and ending up in the more dominant positions, putting Erceg in bad positions on the ground, and you really don't want to grapple with Pantoja. He's probably the best grappler in the entire flyweight division. I get why Steve Erceg was shooting him for takedowns. It was a big part of his game before the UFC, but against Pantoja wasn't the smartest idea, and it might have cost him the fight, and he realized that after. But overall, his grappling really impressed me here. His takedown defense didn't look great. Pantoja was able to get to the body locks, was able to take him down pretty regularly, but he couldn't establish much control. Erceg was able to work his way up to the bottom, was able to get out of positions. Pantoja was getting mount, was getting side control, and Erceg was able to establish guard and find his way back up, which is really impressive on probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner with some of the best control in the division in Pantoja, and a guy who's also so good at taking your back, and I don't know if he ever fully had Erceg's back with both of his hooks in, so I'm very impressed with Erceg's grappling. He might be the best guy in the entire division, and that was only his 4th fight in the UFC, and it was a huge step up in competition. He went from fighting Matt Schnell to fighting Alexandre Pantoja in his 4th fight. He hasn't been in the UFC for even a year yet, so I'm very impressed with Steve Erceg. And as I said earlier, I thought he won the fight. I think it's only a matter of time until he gets the belt. I think he might be the best flyweight on the planet, but as for what's next for both of these guys, I think you do the rematch. Maybe you do it in Australia, but there's not really any #1 contender right now. I guess Amir Albazi's the guy that deserves a title shot the most, but watching Amir Albazi fight is like watching paint dry. I'm just kidding. I'm not. And besides him, there's not really any #1 contender right now. I don't think Brandon Royval deserves a 3rd shot at Pantoja. I don't think Muhammad Kaiev deserves a fight. And that fight between him and Steve Erceg was so close. I think you have to do the rematch. And I really want to see it. I think it's a great fight. And then we go to Jose Aldo defeating Jonathan Martinez by a unanimous decision. Aldo looks so good here. It didn't look like he lost a step at all. He looked so fast despite his age. His boxing was on point. He was piecing up Martinez. Martinez really didn't do too much here. Aldo was really working the body, landing good knees, landing good right hooks and right straights to the body. Jonathan Martinez has never been great at defending body shots, and Aldo's always been amazing at working the body, and that was a big part of his game plan. He would get on the inside, land a left hook, and then a right straight to the body. In the clinch, look for those knees up the middle, and I thought working the body, more specifically the body kicks, were going to be a big part of Martinez's game plan, but he didn't really throw them. He threw a few body kicks, and that was about it, and his kicks have always been the best part of his game, and he was actually landing good leg kicks at the start, but once Aldo got the timing on them, he wasn't really landing them anymore, wasn't really attempting to land them because he couldn't. He tried to mix in some head kicks as well, but Aldo, because he keeps his hands so high, was right there to block him. He even tried to shoot on Aldo, which he was never going to get Aldo down. Aldo has some of the best, if not the best, takedown defense of all time. Even Merab, who is one of the best wrestlers in the entire division, couldn't get Aldo down, so Jonathan Martinez never even had a chance. And then Aldo basically just outboxed him. He was so much faster. Martinez has never been the best boxer. Offensively, he's decent, but defensively, he leaves a lot of holes. He was putting Martinez on the back foot for a large majority of this fight, which made it even harder for Martinez to land and throw his kicks. Aldo even hurt Martinez in that third round and started pouring it on him, but then he shot for a takedown, which doesn't make much sense to me. You got the guy hurt on the feet. Why give him time to recover by shooting in a takedown? I get it, the fight was probably over at that point, but still. Overall, though, Aldo looked amazing. He didn't look like he lost a step at all, just beat the number 12 Jonathan Martinez. I would probably have him number 4 in the rankings, and it looks like he's not going to retire and is going to continue fighting. So who would I like to see him fight next? I'd really like to see him fight Corey Sandhagen, but it was announced literally right before I'm filming this that Corey is going to be fighting Umar, so maybe you do Aldo versus Cejudo or Figueiredo, or you could do a rematch between him and Jan or him and Cheeto. I guess if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick a rematch with Jan. I think that makes the most sense. Next, we go to Anthony Smith submitting Vitor Petrino in the very first round, and I really don't understand what Petrino was doing here. You look at Anthony Smith, and what's his best attribute? It's his jiu-jitsu. He has very good jiu-jitsu, very high level, very good submissions. So why shoot on a guy like that? And when you do shoot and you see him trying to set up the guillotine, why don't you address it at all? Anthony Smith was just landing a few good leg kicks and jabs. That's about it. Nothing too powerful. Petrino really didn't do much on the feet. He was winding up on a lot of his shots. Didn't really land anything. Landed one good leg kick, and that was about it. But then he has Anthony Smith backed up against the fence, throws a left hook and a right hook, and then shoots, and Anthony Smith immediately grabs onto that arm and guillotine, and instead of trying to defend the choke, hand fighting, trying to slip your head out, he puts himself in a worse position by continuing with the takedown. He gets the takedown, but that allows Anthony Smith to close his guard, get full control of the body, and the choke was already under the chin against the guy with elite submissions. It just doesn't make much sense to me, but Anthony Smith did look very good here. He was looking sharp on the feet, looking accurate, not super fast or powerful per usual, but was looking good with his jab, was looking good with his leg kicks. And then the second Petrino shot in that takedown, he grabbed that arm and guillotine, gained full control of his body, and submitted him very quick. It was a flawless guillotine from Anthony Smith. Michel Pereira submits Ihor Potieria in the first round, 54 seconds in, with a high elbow guillotine. This was a weird one. We know Michel Pereira has always been pretty wild, throwing these crazy spinning attacks and doing all these weird flips and stuff, but he sort of moved away from that more recently. But this is by far the craziest thing I've ever seen him do. So he drops Ihor with a 1-2 very early into the first round, only like 30 seconds in, puts him down with a straight right. For some reason, they didn't count it as a knockdown. I don't know if he slipped. It looked like a knockdown to me. And then Michel Pereira passes by doing a backflip over Ihor's legs, right onto him, starts landing ground and pound shots. And then as he looks to get up, he exposes his neck. Pereira grabs straight onto it, goes to the high elbow guillotine, my favorite variation of a guillotine. And that guillotine was so tight, it put him to sleep in less than 4 seconds. It put him out cold. But the funny thing is, Pereira almost got DQ'd because when he did that backflip, he landed straight on Ihor, and it looked like he might have landed an illegal knee to the head, especially in real time. In real time, it looked like he definitely landed a knee to the head while Ihor was on the ground, but in slow motion, it sort of looks like it landed more to the neck or the chest. In the end, they didn't DQ him. They ruled it a legal shot, legal strike, if you can call it that. And Pereira got the win. He is looking so good. His last 2 performances have been amazing. This guy's so much faster, so much more powerful at 185. He's not draining himself as much to get to 170. And give him a ranked opponent next. He definitely deserves it. And he took no damage in this fight. And he took no damage in his last fight as well. He fought at 299 and then fought at 301 right after. But I think he should be taking a little bit of time off, because even though he did take no damage, doing 2 weight cuts and 2 hard training camps that soon is probably not good on the body. But I'd like to see him come back late summer, and please give him a ranked opponent. Caio knocks out Paul Craig in the second round with a big left hook, put him out cold, and Caio really just shut down everything Paul Craig attempted. Craig has never been the best wrestler, but an amazing grappler. Was trying to take this fight to the ground, but he can't do it conventionally. He can't do it with a double leg or a single leg. He just doesn't have that in his game. So instead, he was trying to take Caio down by pulling guard, and pulling guard rarely works in MMA. Caio was just standing up out of it, wasn't really engaging on the ground. There was a time in the second round where he really had Paul Craig hurt, and he still wouldn't jump into Paul Craig's guard because he didn't want to entertain the ground game at all. And on the feet, Paul Craig really didn't do much. He was throwing a lot of kicks, a lot of body kicks, but Caio was doing a good job putting Paul Craig on the back foot, and it is very hard to throw kicks off your back foot while someone's moving into you. And then he would time every time Paul Craig would throw that body kick, that open side body kick, because they're in opposite stances, that body kick is open on Caio and both guys. But every time Paul Craig threw that body kick, Caio would time it, step into it, causing the kick to miss, and then landing a jab. His jab was on point the entire fight. It was so fast. Paul Craig was so slow to react to it, didn't move his head out of the way, didn't really keep his hands up, didn't try and parry it at all. So that jab was just landing all day, kept landing that jab, and basically just landed that jab the entire first round. And then in that second round, Caio started stepping to the outside and then throwing that left straight down the center. You know, when you're facing an opposite stance fighter, controlling the outside foot position is very crucial for a lot of different reasons, but the big one here is that it was lining up that power hand of Caio. So what he was doing is he was throwing a jab, stepping to the outside, landing that left hand. He landed it once, really hurt him, got in the clinch, and then landed it, I think it was a flying switch knee, or might have just been a normal knee, and put Paul Craig down. But as I said, he didn't want to entertain the grappling with Paul Craig at all, so he let him back up to his feet. And in that second round, Paul Craig was actually having some success with his boxing. In the first round, he was only throwing kicks, didn't throw hardly any punches, but in that second round, he was landing a few good right straights. I think he landed 2 of them, but Caio walked right through him, kept Paul Craig on that back foot, and then hurt Paul Craig again and started unloading on him, landing left hooks, and it was a left hook that put him out cold. This was a great performance from Caio Borralho, just shut down everything Paul Craig even attempted. Next, we're going to go to Joanderson Brito defeating Jack Shore by a TKO in the second round due to a doctor stoppage. That was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. I've seen some gross stuff. I can handle some gross stuff, but that was rough. So if you didn't see the fight, Brito was throwing and landing these big leg kicks all day, and he was throwing everything he had into them, and he's throwing everything he had into everything. He's throwing these big overhands that he was telegraphing, these wide left hooks. He was just putting 100% power into all of his shots. And in that first round, he was landing really good leg kicks on Jack Shore. He's landing some big overhands, some good knees as well. But in that second round, he goes shin to shin with Jack Shore on a leg kick. It cuts Jack Shore open, and he is just bleeding everywhere. So I think it was Mark Goddard, whoever the ref was, stops the fight, calls in the doctor, and the doctor is sticking his thumb into the cut. And the cut was so big and deep that they called off the fight, but Jack Shore didn't really like it. He seemed fine. He wasn't limping. He was walking normally. He wanted to continue. So I don't know if I agree with the decision to stop the fight or not, because it wasn't really hindering his ability to fight, and he looked okay, although it was a bad cut. And then the last fight I want to talk about is Mauricio Ruffy knocking out Jamie Mullarkey in the first round for his debut. This was his debut, and Jamie Mullarkey is not an easy fight, and Ruffy just shut him down. He was landing really good low kicks. He was so accurate and precise with that right hand of his. He was so fast. He was managing distance very well. His judgment of distance was very good. He was darting into range super quick, landing a right hand, and then getting out of range before Jamie Mullarkey even knew what happened. He just looked so good in this fight, completely dismantled Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey really didn't do much of anything in this fight because he really couldn't. He just got shut down. And like I said, that was Ruffy's debut. I am very excited to see where this guy goes. He has a lot of potential, and he's still so young, only 27 years old. And then the first 3 fights on this card I did miss. I'm gonna have to make those up. So that is my breakdown for UFC 301. It was honestly a pretty good card, and I got a lot more coming soon, so subscribe so you don't miss that. Like the video if you did enjoy. Leave your opinions on this card in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.